Thank you, Welf. I'd just like to start out with a note to organizers of future conferences, which is please have the part of the program that involves mercenaries and emotional content-rich music videos before the talk about law. Anyways, and I would just like to make clear that I do teach law. I don't teach family law. This is an area of research. I'm just a law professor, so please don't come to me with actual legal problems in Japan. Come to Wilf. I'm going to talk about some of the barriers that parents experience or can experience in trying to get their child back from a foreign legal system. My experience and expertise, I don't know if I even call it expertise, my understanding of Japan is what I'd like to bring to this, and also because obviously it's what Murray experienced, at least in some manifestations. Could I have the next slide, please? So, as we may have mentioned at the beginning, Japan is not a party to the Hague Convention on the Civil Aspects of International Child Abduction in the summer of 2008, right before the G8 summit that was held in Hokkaido, Japan. There was a very low-key announcement that it would join the convention in 2010. Whether that happens or not remains to be seen, and whether joining actually makes a difference also remains to be seen. There are some countries that, as Melissa mentioned, have signed the Hague Convention, and it's still very difficult, if not impossible, to get children back from some of those countries. So the next slide, please. The first, after hearing Melissa's talk, it struck me that really, as barrier number one, I should have put money, because just the expense of going through the legal process, particularly if you've already done it once in your home country, then trying to do it again in a foreign country, can just be prohibitively expensive. In many cases, just the expense can be too much for many parents. I have language here. In the case of Japan, the language is actually part of the expense issue, because to understand what is going on, you have to have everything translated into English, and that alone can effectively double the cost, particularly if it's legal documentation where you need a lawyer both to do the work and then to translate it as well. Another problem, I think, with the language barrier is that anytime you're trying to communicate across through a foreign language or to someone who doesn't speak your language, there's an urge to simplify things. There's an urge to say what you can say rather than what you want to say, which brings us to the next slide, and that is culture. Now, I have this in parentheses because that is commonly given as an explanation, culture. And I'm actually often surprised at how readily this is accepted by lawyers who should normally be sort of pursuing their client's best interest and so forth. I've seen this in both the family context and the commercial context as culture. Oh, okay. And that's not to say that Japan has a unique culture, that it doesn't, or that culture is not a factor, and that Japan has family values that are in some ways different. As I think we heard earlier, I think Japanese people love their children just as much as everybody else. I have culture in parentheses because it can often, in the context of a legal system or in the context of law, it can become a shorthand excuse. Law is something artificial. People made it. Legal systems are systems that people make. They have rules. They're not these sort of mystical things that spring into existence because, well, burning bush did something. But there is, in the context of discussing these cases, there's this urge to say, well, Japanese culture says that, you know, one parent disappears, the end. And these, well, let me give you a good example. There is I don't like the legal, the cultural explanations in the context of legal discussion of how legal systems work, because they tend to be demeaning either on the part of the people to whom the explanation is being made, or to the people on behalf of whom the explanation is being made. An explanation that I've sometimes heard for why it is very difficult to see your children in Japan after divorce is because Japanese people treat their children like property. I've heard this explanation from Japanese people. I don't think it's true. I've read this explanation from an expert on divorce and post-divorce problems in Japan, a Japanese expert, and she writes that, well, visitation in Japan is different than in the West because Japan has a Confucian-based culture where children are important for continuing the bloodline, and once you're outside of the marriage, you're outside of the household, and everything's cut off. And you think, okay, well, that's plausible. And then she continues and says, well, in the West, where they have a gun culture with a long history of incest, fathers often abduct their children and rape them and then murder them. So that's sort of the other side of the cultural explanation. And the other problem with these cultural explanations is most of the next factors that I'm going to talk about are encountered by Japanese parents. In fact, most of my work is not with these international cases. I try to spend more time talking about domestic cases, and though Japan is sometimes referred to as a haven for international parental child abduction, it is a haven effectively for domestic parental child abduction. So the next barrier, and now we're going to start talking about actual sort of system type factors. The next one is that there's no law enforcement. Now, by this I don't mean that there's no police or anything. Japan has a very extensive, well-organized police force. They just do not get involved in civil affairs. A common mantra with Japanese law enforcement officials is, we don't get involved in these cases. It's a family matter. It's a civil matter, not our jurisdiction. So when a parent whose child suddenly goes missing shows up in Japan, or if it's a domestic case, shows up at their local police agency, that's the response they're likely to get is, not our problem, we don't get involved. There's an unless here because, well, they will get involved if it's in their interest to do so. There is an instance of a foreign father being arrested under a human trafficking statute for trying to leave Japan with his child, with no court orders in place. So I've never heard of this statute being applied in reverse, but technically international parental child abduction is a crime in Japan, at least in this one case it was. Next slide, please.